Are you looking for a project feedback form? Are you not quite sure what questions you should ask, what information to capture, or how to best format it? Perhaps you are looking for an optimized project feedback form template. Well, either way, you've come to the right place because in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you two optimized project feedback form templates. One that you can use internally, and the second one which you can use with external stakeholders and leverage both of these going forward. Now, before I delve into how to create these forms step by step and my recommendations for the questions you should include, I do just want to quickly mention that I have made both of them available for instant download. So there will be a link in the description below if you do want to pick them up. Not only will you save yourself a lot of time by instantly downloading them, but you also help to support the channel. That's because they do come at a slight cost. Now, I have made them as affordable as possible, less than the price of a cup of coffee. So with that said, let me show you exactly how to create these. And I'm going to be doing this in Microsoft Word. Now, bear in mind, I'm going to be showing you the process and the questions and information you should be capturing. So if you don't want to use Microsoft Word, perhaps you want to build this in a project management solution, then that is absolutely fine as well. Maybe you have access to some kind of form software or functionality. That would be good as well. Nevertheless, let's delve into creating these forms. So what I like to do is, first and foremost, give the document a title. So I've literally just written project feedback form, and I'm going to expand this by this button here to around 24. Now, bear in mind, I am just going to put in brackets here internal. Now, you may have landed on this video looking for an internal feedback form. You may be looking for an external. So just bear that in mind. The questions and the information that you're capturing is different between the two. So that's why I'm just going to label that here for now. You can always remove that, etc. So what I recommend doing at this point, I'm going to reduce the font size. Now, I'd suggest creating a little table just to capture some really important information as to essentially what the form relates to. So what you're looking for here is we'll do a 2x5. We can always change this if needed. But what we're going to be putting here is project name, submitted by, date of submission, project end date, role on project. I'm actually going to put one more in. So right click, insert rows below, and I'm going to say department. Okay. Now what we're going to do at this point is just format the table. Now there's various different ways of doing this. So in terms of formatting, if you select this little icon here and then go to table design, you've got loads of different options here. I'm just going to do the table grid light for now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in a nice kind of grey shading. It looks quite professional. There we go. And I'm actually going to reduce this font size down to 12. Okay, and I'm actually going to move this across. So I've got that little icon, left click on my mouse and drag across. Okay, so we've got this nice little content area. So anyone who's submitting the project feedback form can enter this information. If you wanted to, you could always put in the project name as an example ahead of time. That may be quite useful. If you can kind of pre-populate this, that's always kind of appreciated. Less work for someone to do, the better. Now what I'm going to be showing you now is the concept of building this. Now this can essentially be replicated for the external form. As I say, I won't be doing the external form as well. It would just take too much time in this video, but the process is exactly the same. So this is how I would build it. So what we're going to be doing here is I'm going to increase the font size to around 18. Now this is a content area. So there's a set of questions pertaining to this particular element of questioning. So project objectives and scope. Now I'm going to put this down to, let's say, 14, and the question is going to be, the first question, did the project meet its initial objectives? If I can spell correctly. Now what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to press space, insert table and one by one. Now this is so important. This is the functionality we're going to be leveraging for the rest of this template. So what I did there, insert table one by one. Now, when someone comes to use this form and submit it, they can literally just type in here. So I'm going to press bold to remove that out of the template. So it's bolds by default. So now when they come in, it's going to, obviously, when they start typing in information, it's going to come in like that. And I'm going to make it font size 12. Now, what you can also do is you can put in some dummy information. So you could ask follow-up questions to help drive the submitters, help them to write the kind of information you're looking for, or you can give an example. That would work as well. You could literally just do a fictitious example, or you could use one from an existing project. So that's essentially the core functionality we're going to be leveraging for the rest of the form. It's a question in bold, slightly larger, and then an insert table one by one. Now, you don't have to create this time and time again. If you just left click and drag down and press Control C, space here, Control V, it just replicates it. And then all you need to do essentially is just add all of the questions. So was the project scope clearly defined and understood? That's another question we should ask. Now, what I would do at this point is I'd select all of this, because that's the 2 questions of this particular content area. So I've left clicked and I've dragged all the way down, Control C. I'm going to go in here and press Control V, and that's because we've got a new content area, and that is project management and execution. Now, I should have mentioned at this stage that you may not want to include every single question. This is just a good it's a good basis, it's a good framework, and it covers a lot of different industries and project types. But you may need to kind of adapt this and alter it to suit your needs. So, project management and execution. How effectively was the project managed? Were the project milestones and deadlines met? Now, you can also make these questions a little bit more personal, such as, do you believe the project milestones and deadlines were met? You get the idea. It depends how you want to frame it. Now, we've got one more question, so I'm going to do this and this, Control C, Control V. And the last question in this section is, how would you rate the project planning and scheduling process? So now we've got a content area with 3 questions and 3 content boxes. By the way, I'm going to just put this on a new page because otherwise it doesn't look quite right. So I've selected all of that. So I've gone from here all the way down. We've got kind of 3 questions and content boxes. Now we can leverage this going forward. So Control V, just put a space in there like that, and then I'm going to go over that and press Control C again. So we can use this going forward. So now we want a content area for team execution, because we want to know essentially how everyone kind of got on. So how do you rate the collaboration and communication among project team members? Because this can be really important for basically working out if your comm strategy was correct and in place as it kind of, as the project unfolded. Was the leadership effective throughout the project? And then you can say something like, do you feel that you were adequately communicated with for the duration of the project? And then you could put something like in brackets, did you understand your role, objectives, etc. So that's team execution. Remember we pressed Control C earlier. Well, now we can press Control V for the next section. So we've got an area now for resources and tools. Were the resources and tools provided sufficient for your successful contribution to the project? You see what I'm doing here? It's actually quite simple. We create the content areas first, and then we just replicate it and update the questions. So, was the leadership effective? Oh, sorry, this is the wrong question here. Were the resources and tools provided sufficient for your successful contribution to the project? Did you have the right level of required access to the resources and tools you needed to undertake your role? And you can say something like, what was missing? What may have helped? So for instance, they may not have had a license to a bit of functionality or software, which may have just made their life a lot easier. I'm going to remove this, Control V. Now we're going to look at outcomes. Now bear with me, we're not actually that far away, but we've got some really important questions to come, so keep watching. Are you satisfied with the final outcome of the project? Now this is an interesting question. You'll be surprised what kind of feedback you get from this. What do you believe are the key successes of the project? And then the last question we're going to ask in this section is, what do you believe did not go so well on the project? What are improvement areas? So hopefully these questions give you ideas as well. Maybe you can update this to be more specific to a particular project you're working on, or you could just think of other questions that are kind of related to this or kind of make sense to ask. So there is an element of, your experience, your position, your industry, the type of projects you work on, that can all impact these project feedback forms. So I would recommend and advise that you do that. Now, this is an important section. This is a really important section. Personal experience. What did you learn from this project? Now, another thing I'm going to mention at this stage is you may want to kind of reshuffle these sections. So this may be a section you want to put right at the top of the feedback form. So you need to work out what you're essentially looking for. Essentially, what I would suggest is that the more you're looking for particular bits of information, make that kind of front load that, put that towards the top of the template. Equally, the more questions you ask, the less chances you'll get kind of a really well populated form. So this is quite a thorough feedback form. You may not want to include every single question, so just bear that in mind as well. Would you consider the workload to be manageable and appropriately assigned? And then the last question we've got two more. This question is going to be, what do you feel were your key contributions to the project? And then lastly, we're going to have a content section for what would you have done differently on the project. Now the last section is just a content area for Control V, open-ended feedback. So, do you have any other comments or suggestions that could help you in future projects? You could also put that could help us. So you could put you, us, could help us in future projects. And then it kind of gives that team culture and everyone's benefiting. So that is the final section. So these are all the questions that I recommend that you include. You've seen how I've created this. Now at this point, save this as a template and you can update this for every single project you ever work on and just make some refinements as and when necessary. Now what you can also do at this point is you can just literally select it all and you can create a quick variation. So Control C, you can create a quick variation, Control V, and call this external. Now you will need to make some changes, so I'm going to open up the template that I've showed you earlier, which you can instantly download, but you just need to update the questions. So I'm not going to go through that entire process of updating it because I think that's a waste of time. But if I quickly just show you the external form, you'll get an idea of how it kind of subtly how it's different essentially. So we've got project name, customer/client name in the table above, submitted by, date of submission, and role on project. Now this is obviously a more updated table. Now if we just look at some of the questions, did the project achieve the goals and objectives as you understood them? Was the project scoped aligned with your expectations? You can also put your business expectations. Project management execution, how would you rate the overall project management from your perspective? Were communications timely and effective throughout the project? Did the project adhere to the agreed upon timeline? Quality of deliverables. This is a new section. Were the deliverables of the project to the quality you expected? Did the final outcome of the project meet your business needs? We've got an area for client satisfaction, Overall, how satisfied were you with the project's results? What were the strongest aspects of the project? What improvements would you suggest for future projects? And then there's a content area at the bottom for additional feedback. Do you feel that your feedback was adequately sought and addressed during the project? Would you recommend our products or services based on your experience? Any further comments, suggestions, or insights that you would like to share? Now, notice this is actually a lot shorter, the external feedback form. Chances are your clients or the businesses you're working with, they won't give you as much information. They'll afford you much less time. You can't really chase them like you can internal stakeholders, etc. So make sure your external feedback form is kind of brief and don't basically over ask. That would be my recommendation here. But all you'd essentially do is update that internal feedback form with the process I've literally just shown you, or you could create this from scratch. So hope this video is useful. I hope you now have an optimized project feedback form, well, two optimized project feedback forms internally and externally that you can leverage from this moment going forward. Any questions, comments, feedback, drop them down below. And with that said, best of luck, and I hope you have an excellent day.